I was 16 that summer, the kind of 16 where you feel brave just because you can walk around the mall without your mom hovering behind you. But you still sleep with a nightlight when nobody's looking. It was late July of 2004, sticky hot days and loud crickets at night. And my biggest problems were whether my bangs looked stupid after swimming, and whether my best friend would stop calling my flip phone just to breathe into it and hang up. Then I brought that book home. It started at a school trip, one of those cheap end-of-year camp weeks the district loved because it kept teenagers busy and made parents happy. We took a bus out to a place that smelled like pine needles, sunscreen, and cafeteria pancakes. The cabins were old, the kind that creak even when you're not walking. And the counselors were college kids who thought they were running a tiny country. On the second day, during a lull after lunch, I met a girl from another class named Kendra. She wasn't the goth type everybody pictured back then. No heavy eyeliner, no drama, just quiet, pale from staying indoors and always carrying something. Books mostly. She had a calm way of speaking, like she'd already decided the rest of us were going to talk ourselves into trouble, and she was going to watch. We were sitting on a picnic bench near the lake when she pulled out this thick hardcover, wrapped in a scarf like it was fragile. "What's that?" I asked, leaning forward. Kendra didn't smile. She just unwrapped it, slow and careful, and set it down like it had weight beyond paper. The cover said in plain letters, "The Big Book of Magic." I actually laughed at first. That's direct. Kendra shrugged. "It's not a joke book." "Okay," I said, still smiling because I didn't know what else to do. "What is it, like stage tricks?" She gave me a look that wasn't mean, just tired. "No. It's old stuff. Rituals. Protection. Calling. Seeing. Things people used before they had phones to distract them." I should have rolled my eyes. That's what my mom would have wanted. My mother's answer to anything strange was, "Stop making yourself nervous." But at 16, "Stop making yourself nervous" is basically a dare. A couple other girls drifted over when they saw the book. Within minutes, it turned into a little circle of curiosity. Everybody had something to say. "This is like The Craft," one girl whispered, like she'd just named a sacred thing. "My aunt has tarot cards," another one said. "She does it at parties. It's fun." Kendra watched us like a babysitter. "It's not for parties." I reached out and touched the cover with one finger. The material felt weirdly cool, even under the sun. I told myself it was just because the book had been in the shade. "What's inside?" I asked. "Stuff," she said, flipping it open. The pages were yellowed, not ancient looking but definitely not new. There were symbols drawn in ink, instructions in cramped text, little diagrams that looked like somebody had copied them from something older. A few pages had stains like water rings. A few had handwritten notes in the margin. I felt my stomach do a tiny, excited dip. Kendra tapped the page with her nail. "Don't mess with this if you don't mean it." "Mean what?" I asked. She lowered her voice. "Mean the consequences." One of the counselors shouted across the field, telling us to get moving for some activity, canoes, maybe, or some trust fall nonsense. The little circle broke up, but the book stayed on my mind like a song you can't get out of your head. Later that night, in the cabin, while everybody was doing the usual teen girl thing, whispering, giggling, talking about who looked cute at dinner, Kendra sat on her bunk reading the book under a flashlight. I pretended not to stare, then finally said, "Can I look at it?" She didn't answer right away. She glanced up at me like she was weighing me. "Just look," I promised. "I'm not gonna do anything." That made her lips tighten, like she'd heard that promise before. Still, she slid the book over. "No tearing pages. No coping symbols. No saying things out loud." "Why?" I asked. Kendra's flashlight made her eyes look too bright. "Because speaking is doing." I nodded like you understood. I didn't. Not really. But I took the book carefully anyway, like it might bite. The pages smelled like old paper and something else, like incense that had been in a drawer too long. I flipped slowly. Some of it looked like nonsense. Some of it looked like prayers written by someone who didn't believe in mercy. On one page, there was a section about doors. That's what the heading said. Doors. The text under it was cramped and serious, and there was a diagram of a doorway with symbols drawn at the corners. I remember thinking, That's dramatic. It's literally a door. I closed the book and handed it back, trying to act casual. So you just read it? Kendra tucked it under her pillow. Sometimes. You ever see anything? I asked, half teasing, half not. She hesitated, then said, not the kind of thing you're thinking. More like you notice. Notice what? People. Places. When something doesn't fit. She looked away. Look, I didn't bring it here to show off. I brought it so it wouldn't be in my house. That should have been my warning right there. A normal person hears that and says, wow, okay, and backs away. I wasn't a normal person. I was 16, bored and convinced that bad things happened to other people. When camp ended, the bus dropped us off in our parking lot, like we just survived something meaningful. Parents hugged kids who pretended not to like it. Someone's dad complained about the smell. I found my mom's car and climbed in, tossing my duffel in the back. My mom glanced at me and smiled in that distracted way she had when she'd been working all day. You survive. Barely, I said, because I liked making her laugh. On the drive home, I told her about the lake and the food and the counselor who fell off a canoe. I did not tell her about the book. I don't know why. I just didn't. A week later, Kendra and I were talking on the phone landline because that's what we had then. I was sitting on the living room floor, flipping through a magazine, and she was quiet on the other end like she always was. Can I borrow it? I asked as casually as I could manage. Silence. Kendra, I said, drawing her name out. Come on. Just to read. It's not a library book, she said. I know, I said quickly. I won't mess it up. I don't know. It's interesting. Another pause. Then softer. Why? I should have told the truth. Because it made me feel like there was a hidden layer to life, like maybe the world wasn't just school and homework and my mom nagging me to clean my room. Instead, I said, because I'm bored. Kendra made a sound, half sigh, half laugh without humor. Bored is how people do dumb things. I'm not doing anything, I insisted. I just want to look. She was quiet long enough that I thought she'd hang up. Then she said, okay, but you bring it back. And you don't show it around. I swear, I said way too fast. We met in the parking lot of a grocery store. One of those plain suburban stores with a big flag out front and carts that always had one bad wheel. She came with her older brother, who didn't even look at me. He just leaned on the car and stared into the middle distance like he was being punished. Kendra handed me the book wrapped in the same scarf. Don't leave it open, she said. Okay. Don't read it out loud, she repeated. Okay. And if something feels off, she added, you stop. You don't push through. I rolled my eyes a little, trying to keep it light. What, like it's gonna jump off the page? Kendra didn't smile this time. You'd be surprised what attention looks like. I laughed anyway, because that's what you do when you're nervous and you don't want anyone to notice. At home, I hid it under my bed for a day like it was contraband. Then when my mom went to work and the apartment was quiet, I pulled it out. Our place wasn't fancy. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, thin walls, and a little entry area outside the door that we shared with the neighbor across the hall. My mom called it the little lobby. Technically, it was a vestibule, 2 apartment doors facing each other, a second door to the main hallway. It was supposed to feel safe, like a buffer. That week, I'd sit on my bed with the book on my lap, flipping through it like I was reading secrets. I didn't do anything out loud. I swear I didn't. I just looked. I traced symbols with my eyes. I read instructions and thought, people really believe this. And I kept coming back to that section about doors. It wasn't even the scariest part of the book. There were pages about dreams and pages about names you shouldn't call, and pages about protection circles. But the door section bothered me because it felt practical, like something you could actually do by accident. On the night everything happened, it was around 10, late enough that the outside air had cooled, but the apartment still held the day's heat like a sponge. The TV was on in the living room, some harmless show reruns, I think. The kind of thing you watch when you're tired and you don't want your brain working. My mom was on the couch in her sweats, hair pulled back, half watching, half zoning out. I was in the recliner with my legs tucked under me, pretending to watch while my mind ran in loops. The book was in my room under my bed, wrapped back up. I put it away earlier because something about it had started to make me uneasy. Not like horror movie uneasy, more like, When you're alone in a store aisle and you realize someone's been behind you for a while. My mom yawned and said, "We should head to bed soon." "Yeah," I murmured. And then the doorbell rang. Not a polite little ding. A hard, pressing ring like somebody had their finger glued to it. My mom and I both looked toward the front door at the same time. "We expecting anyone?" she asked. I shook my head. "No." The doorbell rang again, fast, impatient. My mom sat up straighter. "Who on earth?" "I'll check," I said because I was closer, and because being 16 means you always want to prove you can handle things. I walked to the front door and looked through the peephole into the vestibule. The light out there was on, yellow and weak, the kind that makes everything look a little sick. Nobody was there. I blinked and leaned in closer, squinting. The vestibule was empty. Just our doormat, the neighbor's doormat, a couple of scuff marks on the tile. Nothing. I opened the apartment door a crack, the chain still on, and peeked into the vestibule. Empty. But as soon as that air hit my legs, I felt it. This sudden cold like I'd stepped into a basement. It slid over my skin in a wave, raising goosebumps. I shut the door and stood there for a second, hand still on the knob. From the couch, my mom called, "Anybody?" "No," I said, trying to sound normal. "Probably kids messing around." "That late?" she asked. Maybe I lied. I walked back toward the living room, and my mom went back to the TV like it was settled. I tried to do the same, but my skin still felt cold, like the chill had followed me. 2 minutes later, the bell rang again. This time it wasn't just pressing. It was intentional. Like whoever it was wanted us to know they weren't going away. My mom's eyes narrowed. "Okay, now I'm annoyed." "I'll check again," I said quickly, and I hate admitting this, but part of me wanted to prove I wasn't scared. I went back to the door, leaned into the peephole, and there was a man standing in the vestibule. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I might actually throw up. He was close to the door, almost too close for comfort. He wore a long black coat, maybe a cloak, maybe just an old-fashioned overcoat, and a brimmed hat pulled low. His shoes were pointed, the kind you'd see in an old movie. Everything about him looked like it belonged in a different time. But the worst part was his face. Or more accurately, the way I couldn't see it. The vestibule light should have hit him. It should have shown his eyes, his nose, something. Instead, his face was swallowed in shadow like the light refused to touch it. I swallowed and forced my voice to work. Through the door I called, "Can I help you?" No response. He didn't move. Didn't shift his weight. He just stood there, close enough that I could see the shape of his shoulders, the line of the hat, the dark space where a face should be. I tried again, louder. "Who are you here for?" Silence. Then the doorbell rang again, right in front of me, like he was pressing it without moving his arm. The sound went straight through my bones. I stepped back, heart hammering. "Mom," I called, trying to keep my voice steady. "Can you come here a second?" My mom's footsteps came down the hall, annoyed and heavy. "What is it?" "There's a guy out there," I whispered. "And he's just standing there." My mom huffed. "Probably someone at the wrong door. People do that." "Mom," I said. "He's really, just look." She leaned in and looked through the peephole. Her face changed, but not the way I expected. She didn't look scared. She looked confused. "Natalie," she said, pulling back. "There's nobody there." I froze. "What?" She looked again, longer this time, like she thought maybe she'd missed something. "It's empty." My mouth went dry. "No, it's not. He's right there." She straightened up and gave me that mother look, the one that says, "You've been online too much," even though in 2004 online too much meant AOL and chat rooms you weren't supposed to be in. "It's kids," she said. "They ring and run." "Mom," I insisted. "I can see him." She sighed. "Sweetheart, you're tired. You've been up late all week. Go sit down." She walked back to the living room, already done with it, already trusting her own eyes over mine. The TV sound rose again, casual, safe. And I stood there in the hall, staring at the peephole like it was a trap. Here's the thing I need you to understand, because if you've never been truly scared in that specific way, it's hard to explain. I could have just walked away. I could have done what my mom did. I could have gone back to the couch and let the TV swallow it. But I couldn't move. I don't mean I didn't want to. I mean my body felt pinned in place like the air had weight. The cold was back too, creeping up from the floor, wrapping around my calves. And in my head, A thought formed so clearly it didn't feel like my own. Don't turn your back. If you've ever had that instinct, the one that shows up without permission, you know how it feels. Like your brain grabbed the steering wheel. So I stayed there right by the door watching. And I need to say this straight to you because I didn't say it to anyone back then. If you think the scary part was just a creepy guy at the door, you're underestimating it. I didn't know it yet, but that was the smallest, gentlest moment of the night. Everything after that was colder, sharper, like whatever this was had been patient until it realized I was paying attention. The doorbell didn't ring again for a little while. Maybe a minute. Maybe 10 seconds. Time got weird, stretched. I leaned into the peephole again. He was still there. Same spot. Same angle. Like a cutout pasted into reality. The shadow where his face should be looked deeper now. Less like darkness and more like absence. My throat tightened. I whispered even though nobody could hear me through a peephole. "Why are you here?" No response. I stepped back and put my forehead against the door, breathing through my nose, trying to calm down the way my mom always told me to. It's nothing. It's a misunderstanding. It's a prank. But it didn't feel like a prank. Pranks have energy. This felt like still water. I tried one more time louder because some part of me thought that if I acted confident, it would become true. "What do you want?" For the first time, something changed. Not him, he still didn't move. But the air shifted, like the vestibule had gotten smaller. Like the space between us had tightened. And then he spoke. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was flat, metallic, like a voice you hear through a drive-through speaker when the person is too far from the mic. "I came for you." My knees went weak so fast I had to grab the wall with my free hand. My voice came out like air. I swallowed and tried again. "Who are you?" He didn't answer that. Just stood there, close, and I had the sudden awful feeling that if I opened the door, he'd already be inside. My mind scrambled for logic. Maybe this was someone playing a sick joke. Maybe it was the neighbor's relative. Maybe it was. And then my thoughts landed on the book. Not because I wanted them to, because it felt like a puzzle piece clicking into place. Kendra's voice in my memory. Speaking is doing. That section about doors. Those symbols I'd stared at for too long, like my eyes had been fingers. I don't know how to explain that moment without sounding dramatic, but it was like I understood something without learning it. Like I'd leaned over a line, and something on the other side had noticed. My skin prickled. The cold was everywhere now. On my arms, my neck, even my face, like the apartment had lost its heating system in one instant. Behind me, the TV laughed at a joke track. My mom called from the couch, impatient. "Natalie, are you still standing there?" I couldn't answer her. I couldn't take my eyes off the peephole. He was still there, and he felt closer. I did the stupid thing people do when they're scared. I tried to make it normal. "Listen," I said, voice shaking but trying for authority. "You have the wrong apartment. You need to leave." The man didn't react. Then very softly, the doorbell rang again. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run to my mom and hide behind her like I was 5. But that thought, the one I'd had earlier, came back. "Don't turn your back." And a second thought followed, equally clear, equally unwanted. "You have to say something back." I don't know where I got it from. I didn't read it in the book. I didn't hear it in church. It just arrived in my head like a last match in a dark room. My hands were shaking so badly, I could hear the tiny squeak of my fingertips on the door. I swallowed hard and forced my mouth to form words. "Go with God," I said. It sounded old-fashioned. It sounded like something a grandmother would say to a rude salesman. It wasn't clever. It wasn't dramatic. It was all I had. For a second, nothing happened. Then the cold in the vestibule surged, like wind without sound. The air pressed against the door, pushing so hard my ears popped. The shape of the man wavered. It wasn't like he turned or stepped away. It was like the outline of him started to blur at the edges, like heat shimmer over asphalt, except it was cold, so cold my teeth chattered. I didn't blink. I didn't breathe. The shadow where his face should be thinned, like fog pulled apart. And then, slowly, impossibly, he began to dissolve. Not melt. Not fade like a movie trick. Dissolve, like he'd been held together by a tension, and the words I'd said had cut that thread. His coat turned into nothing. His hat became a shape, then a suggestion, then empty air. Within seconds, the vestibule was empty again. Just my doormat, the neighbor's doormat, scuffed tile, weak yellow light. I stood there, frozen, waiting for the bell to ring again. It didn't. My legs felt like rubber when I finally moved. I unlatched the chain without thinking and cracked the door open, peering into the vestibule like I expected him to be crouched behind something. There was nothing. No footsteps fading away. No elevator ding. No door closing. No person storming down the hallway laughing about a prank. Just silence. I shut the door and locked it with every lock we had, hands fumbling, breath coming too fast. My mom called again, more irritated now. "Natalie, what is going on?" I walked back into the living room, and the normalcy of it hit me like a slap. The TV glow. The couch. My mom's tired face. She looked me up and down. "What's with you? You look pale." My voice cracked. I tried again. "I'm scared." My mom sighed like she was dealing with a spooky story, not her actual kid. "Of what? There's nobody out there." "I saw him," I said, and my eyes burned like I might cry. "I heard him." My mom's expression softened a little, but she still didn't believe me. Not fully. "Honey, you probably heard your own echo. People can ring and run. It happens." "It wasn't kids," I whispered. She patted the couch cushion next to her. "Come sit. You're working yourself up." I sat, but I couldn't relax. I kept glancing at the hallway like it was a throat that might swallow me. My mom watched me for a second, then muted the TV. "Okay," she said, more serious. "Tell me exactly what happened." So I did. I told her about the bell, the empty vestibule, the cold, the man in the coat, the way she couldn't see him, the words, "I came for you," and how he disappeared when I said what I said. My mom listened, arms crossed, lips pressed together, face unreadable. When I finished, she rubbed her forehead. "Natalie, you've been reading those creepy books again, haven't you?" I flinched because she'd guessed closer than I wanted. "It's not." I started. "Don't lie," she said, not harsh, just firm. I swallowed. "I borrowed something." "What kind of something?" I hesitated, then admitted, "A book. From a girl at camp." My mom stared. "What kind of book?" I looked down at my hands. "It's called The Big Book of Magic." My mom made a face like she'd tasted something bad. "Why would you?" "Because it was interesting," I said quickly. "I wasn't doing anything. I was just reading." My mom exhaled through her nose. Okay, we're not doing that anymore." "I know," I whispered. She stood up and pointed toward my room. "Go get it. Right now." The hallway felt colder than it should have, like the apartment hadn't fully warmed back up. My room door looked normal. My bed looked normal. Everything looked normal. But my skin didn't believe in normal anymore. I dropped to my knees and pulled the book out from under the bed, scarf and all. My hands trembled so hard the pages rustled even though it was closed. I stared at it like it might open itself. Then I grabbed the other stuff too. The little deck of fortune cards I'd bought at a yard sale because I thought it was funny. A couple of printed pages I'd gotten from a library book months ago about reading signs. Even a cheap notebook where I'd written down symbols I thought looked cool. I carried it all out like I was cleaning up a spill. My mom saw the pile in my arms and her eyes widened. "You have all that, Dash?" I didn't answer. I just dumped it on the kitchen table. My mom grabbed a grocery bag and started shoving everything into it like she was throwing out spoiled food. "This goes away," she said. "Tonight." "Where?" I asked, voice small. "I don't care," she snapped, then softened immediately when she saw my face. "Savi, I don't like this." I nodded. "Me neither." The rest of the night moved in short, jittery moments. My mom checked the locks twice. She looked through the peephole again, just to prove something to herself. She even opened the apartment door and looked into the vestibule, like she wanted to catch some neighborhood kid in the act. Nothing happened. No bell. No footsteps. No cold wave. But the quiet didn't comfort me. It made me feel like something was waiting just out of sight. When my mom finally said, "You're sleeping in my room tonight," I didn't argue. Not even for pride. I lay on the floor on a spare blanket while my mom slept in her bed, and I stared at her dresser in the dark, listening to the apartment's normal sounds. The fridge humming, the building settling, distant pipes clicking. Every creak made my heart kick. At some point in the night, I heard a sound that made my whole body tense. A faint tap from the direction of the hallway. Not a bell, not a knock, just a tap, like a fingernail. I held my breath, waiting. Nothing followed. I didn't sleep much. In the morning, sunlight made the world look innocent again, like it always does. My mom got dressed for work, hair still damp from the shower, acting like everything was back under control. But her eyes were more serious than usual as she tied her shoes. "You're taking that book back today," she said. "I will," I promised. "And you're not bringing anything like that into this house again." "I won't," I said, and this time I meant it. When Kendra met me that afternoon, she took one look at my face and stopped walking. "What happened?" she asked. I handed her the book, still wrapped in the scarf, and my hands were sweaty like I'd been running. Kendra didn't reach for it right away. "Natalie." "I didn't do anything," I said quickly. "I didn't read out loud. I didn't draw symbols. I looked." Kendra's jaw tightened. And I swallowed. Someone came to my door. Kendra went very still. "Someone human?" "I don't know," I whispered. "I saw him. My mom didn't. He said he came for me." Kendra closed her eyes for a second, like she was bracing herself. "What did you say back?" "I told him to go with God," I said, and I felt stupid even saying it. Kendra opened her eyes and for the first time, she looked scared. Not spooky story scared. Real scared. "That worked?" she asked. "He disappeared," I said. Like he was never there." Kendra took the book then, clutching it against her chest. Her voice was tight. "You were lucky." "Lucky?" I echoed. She looked around the parking lot like she expected someone to be listening. "You think it's a game because it's in a book. But it's not a game. It's attention. It's like turning on a porch light. Something sees it." My throat tightened. "Why would it want me?" Kendra's expression was grim. "Because you're young. Because you're open. Because you looked." I stared at her. "So what?" It was like a warning. Kendra didn't answer right away. Then she said quieter, "Sometimes it's a warning. Sometimes it's a test. Sometimes it's just something noticing." I hugged myself and felt my stomach turn. "I'm never touching that stuff again." Kendra nodded, like that was the only smart thing I'd said. Good. I went home and didn't go near the doorbell for days without my heart speeding up. Nothing else happened after that. Not like that night. No more shadow man. No more metallic voice. No more cold waves crawling up my legs in the vestibule. But I changed. That's the part people don't like in stories because it's not flashy, but it's real. I started paying attention to little things. How silence can feel heavy. How some corners of a room feel wrong at night. How a door can feel like a line instead of just wood and metal. Later, months later, I found an article in a library book, something about people messing with occult stuff when they're under 18 and how, sometimes, the experiences start as fear. Like a scare tactic. Like something trying to push you away. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if there's a rule book for any of this. All I know is what happened in that tiny vestibule in late July of 2004, at 10 at night, while my mom watched TV like the world was safe and simple. I know what I saw. I know what I heard. And I know that when people say, "I wish I could see something supernatural just once," I don't laugh. I don't roll my eyes. I don't play along. Because I did see it, something that didn't belong, and it didn't feel like a cool story. It felt like standing on the edge of a dark pool and realizing there's no bottom. So if you're tempted, if you're curious, if you think it's harmless because it's printed on paper and bound in a cover with a clever title, just remember this. Sometimes the moment you just look, something looks back.